RGB Stripe has finally hit the tandem OLEDs, and ASUS has sponsored this video for us to take a look at their first 32-inch version of this panel. One of the things that this panel type does is increase your color gamut and also reduces that really annoying text fringing that you can get on some of the other OLED subpixel layouts. Inside, one of the first things we see is an accessories bag that has all of your cables that you might want included. We have our power cable, DisplayPort cable, HDMI cable, USB A to B cable, and USB-C cable. USB cable is good for USB 3.2 speeds. All of these cables are 6 feet except for the USB-C cable, which is about 5. We have a few stickers and some manuals, as well as microfiber cleaning cloth. As much as they have worked to increase the hardness of displays, I still appreciate the fact that they include a microfiber cleaning cloth, because as with anything glossy, you want to keep that surface really, really nice and smooth and not get any micro scratches in it. Speaking of that panel, ASUS has their TrueBlack glossy coating on the panel, which gives you a better perceived black than you would get with some of the QD OLEDs, which still has a little bit of that magenta hue, and it also helps cut down on some reflections. Moving on, we have our stand, which is made out of metal, and the second part of our stand, they have 2 pogo pins that sit in the back of the monitor, and this is going to be for, if you look really closely, there is an LED at the bottom here that you can project down with. Putting this together, it has my favorite single toolless screw to hold it all together. And once tight, it's nice and sturdy. What else do we have here? These are different lenses for that LED that I was talking about earlier. So you got a clear one, a second clear one. I think they include 2 of these clear ones in case you want to mark one up yourself and make your own design. What about third clear one? And as an example of what you can do with it, just an ROG logo. We also have the bottom cap for the whole stand, which is where all of those lenses would fit in. That is just secured by magnets on the bottom like that. Another nice inclusion is this guy right here, which is an adapter that goes on the back of your monitor so that you can mount a typical monitor arm to it with your VESA mounting standard. This type of adapter is super handy when you have a monitor that has that recessed mounting point, because not all arms will actually reach in there properly, and they'll get interference when you try and mount your monitor arm. To install the stand, all you do is tilt slightly and click down. Then you can pull the whole thing out, and voila. It's nice to see that they include some foam on the front of the monitor just to protect that OLED panel through shipping. One of the trademarks to OLEDs is it being so thin, and that can lead to damage being a little bit easier. On the back, you can see that it's using the transparent design language that they have used in a couple of monitors up to this point. What that also means, though, is we get a lot of peels. Let's count them all. The big one first. There's 2, 3, 4. We have 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Is there one more? Oh, you're right, there is one more. Right there. 13. For I/O, we have 2 HDMI 2.1 FRL, and that's fixed rate link so that you get the full 4K 120 out of that. You can get a little bit more, but you're going to be using display stream compression at that point. We have a single DisplayPort 2.1A with UHBR20, so that gets you the full 80 gigabits per second for 4K 240 Hertz. Our USB-C with DisplayPort Alt Mode, which also can charge for 90 watts. Then we have a USB-B in case you want to plug in other USB devices to your monitor and have this work as a hub, and a audio jack. And then we have our 3 USB-A 5 gigabit right beside our power. Speaking of the power, you may have noticed that this has a fully integrated power supply. ASUS is using a GaN-FET power supply, which means that there's going to be 35% less heat produced, and it all fits within the body itself. So you don't have to have an external brick, which is super, super nice. Some other things that I haven't talked about with the stand is it does have a little bit of swivel and a little bit of pivot. So that gives you the flexibility to make a little bit of adjustment for your specific setup. Of course, you have the tilt as well and some vertical adjustment. On the top, you also have a 1/4-20 mount in case you want to mount some sort of a camera up there. I do really like this see-through aesthetic that they've gone for. It's really cool seeing the details that they've put behind this transparent panel. On the front, you can see that TrueBlack glossy coating doing its work where it's nice and black, even with all of the studio lights here. It is going to be fairly reflective still because it's a glossy coating, but it's less reflective than what you would get with a typical glossy. Let's hook this up to a computer and see what the picture looks like. Pulling open the OSD, you'll notice that there is a lot of options that are grayed out right now. That's because from the factory, they've left it in a power saving setting to meet some energy consumption guidelines. The first thing that we're going to do is turn that off so that we can get the full capabilities of this monitor. Turning off the power saving, we can see that it started lighting up a bunch of the extra RGB features already. On first power on, we are getting a message saying to prevent and reduce occurrence of image retention, please execute the pixel cleaning and do not unplug the monitor before the process of pixel cleaning function. We're going to skip that for now, but it's something that you probably want to do at home just as a safety precaution. There are a number of OLED burn-in reduction strategies that ASUS is employing with this monitor, and the pixel cleaning is one of those. Another one of the strategies that ASUS is using is their Neo proximity sensor, which you can set a distance for it to detect on. And what it will do is it will see if there is movement within that kind of distance perimeter, and it will turn the panel off for you if there is no movement for a certain period of time. This will help save the panel from any sort of burn-in, just being left idle on a static screen. They've had the sensor around for a little bit, but one of the new things that they have with this particular model is you can adjust the motion sensitivity. You have 5 different levels of sensitivity that you can go to now. Let's talk about the capabilities of this panel a little bit now. We did go over the fact that it is a RGB Stripe tandem OLED panel, but what this is 4K 240 Hertz, where it also gives you the option to do 1080p at 480 Hertz. The 1080p high refresh rate mode is a little bit nicer than some of the other options that they've had in the past that were high refresh rate but 720p. You're getting a little bit more usable resolution out of it and still getting a ton of refresh rate. This is a 32-inch class monitor, but the physical screen size is 31.5 inches. This gives you a PPI of 140. While you can go through and configure your monitor through the OSD and the physical buttons itself here, ASUS has put together the DisplayWidget Center, which gives you all of the same options as long as your monitor is connected. With other monitors that I've had that have this kind of companion software, you need to have the USB plugged in. I don't actually have any USB plugged into this monitor right now, and I can, as you see, adjust the brightness through the software without USB. In the software, you get essentially a mirror of what you would find in the OSD. So we've got our kind of visual stuff that we can tweak here with brightness, contrast, and different viewing modes, as well as things like the OLED care that we were playing around with before. Oh, cool. You can assign keyboard hotkeys to things like your brightness. While you can set these hotkeys here for a bunch of display functions, one of the functions that you can't get to through the software, at least as of right now, is your toggle between your 4K 240 and your 1080p 480 mode. That is on the button right in the back here. And after a brief period, you'll see frame rate boost on. And now all of our icons on the desktop are bigger and our windows move more smoothly. That being said, I'm gonna flip it back into 4K mode and let's do some gaming. Jumping into Cyberpunk, you can already see that this panel handles those lights super well. Even when it's daylight outside, you can see the contrast between the undersides of these beams and the bright fluorescent lights underneath. Running at 240 Hertz, the gaming computer that we have over here has enough horsepower to still run this at Ray Tracing Ultra, and you can see that everything's running nice and smooth. This is one of the outside of the bars inside the game, and I like it because you have a consistently dark place that has these bright highlights, and as you can see, they're doing a little bit of a photo shoot, and you can have those flashes coming off. Something that is worth noting is that out of the box, this is targeting about 500 nits of brightness, so you're not actually getting the full capabilities of the brightness side of the panel, but there's a reason for that. Let's take a look at some of the color accuracy. Starting in SDR mode, we had a peak brightness out of the box at 210 nits, but if you turn the brightness up to 100, we got that up to 472 nits in FPS mode. In HDR, out of the box, as I said before, we're hitting 500 nits of brightness. It's worth noting that out of the box, we got a Delta E ITP of 12.83 on gaming HDR. If you go into the on-screen display settings, there's actually a mode in the HDR setting that is called Adjustable HDR. We turn this on, and it gives you a warning saying that the HDR PQ curve will be affected, but now we have brightness control. Once you turn that adjustable HDR on and turn the brightness up to 100, we hit a peak brightness of just over 1,000 nits, but this does come at a bit of a cost. Looking at the HDR color performance, while we do get 78% of the BT 2020 color space, we got a Delta E ITP of just over 55, which is crazy for the color accuracy. The reason for this is because the colors are not following the EOTF curve super well. And once we start cranking the brightness, it just blows that even more out of proportion. Bringing that display brightness down to 90 and putting it in the Display HDR 400 mode, this brings the Delta E ITP down to a much more reasonable 7.85. Reasonable being actually pretty good. Moving over to SDR, we were able to hit 99.4% of the sRGB color space in user mode with the brightness set to 100. And in terms of P3, we were able to hit 99.3% of the color space in FPS mode. As for color accuracy, to get the most accurate SDR colors, you actually have to switch the modes up again. Racing mode gave us the best sRGB color with a Delta E2000 of 0.99, which is really, really good. You could be doing creative work knowing that you're getting good colors even at that level. For display P3, we hit a Delta E2000 of 1.52 in user mode. Moving around inside the game, you can be confident that the latency of the panel is not holding you back. In 4K 240Hz, we measured a latency of 2.5 milliseconds, which is just 0.4 milliseconds over the theoretical best that you can get. In 1080p 480Hz mode, we were able to see a measured latency of 1.7 milliseconds, which is just 0.7 milliseconds above theoretically perfect. Two of the biggest benefits about this RGB Stripe subpixel layout, though, are the great color volume that you get and the massive reduction in fringing around text. Where you'll see that most is on black text with white backgrounds. Getting right up close here, the text fringing is almost completely gone. If you're moving around a little bit or at certain angles, you might be able to catch a glimpse, but it is pretty much not there. While this is a top-of-the-line monitor, it also comes with a top-of-the-line price. The 32-inch model is $1399 US, which, yes, that does sting a bit, but you have to keep in mind that you're getting the newest of all of these display technologies, and you can't really get better in terms of a performance in the gaming monitor. If 32 inches is too big for you, they also have a 27-inch model with all of the same technology and all of the same specs with a bit better PPI for $1199. Honestly, these are both amazing examples of gaming monitors, but the price is quite high up there. It is giving you a glimpse into what is coming in the future though. The price will drop over time and you'll start to see some of these features kind of trickle down to your mainstream monitors over time. If you want to learn more about both of these monitors, we'll have a link in the description for you to check it out more. If you're looking for some more affordable OLEDs closer to the $500 mark, ASUS has got you covered there. You can check out this video.